Así tú hablas de tu esposo con tu amante, con tu ex pareja, que tú le dices a tu ex como burlándote de mí. Te va a pesar esa decisión. Te va a pesar.
We've heard Yohan say that before, but this time he's serious. It seems like he's finally had enough of all the shit that Danielle's put him through.
Yo estoy con Daniel hasta que se cumpla el contrato de la casa. Cuando se termine el contrato, ella coge su lado y yo el mío.
Whoa, is this Yohan's way of finally standing up for himself? Now, before we dive into the biggest breakup of the season, let's rewind back to the start of this episode. Now, the last time we saw Danielle, it was really clear just how little she cares for her husband. But does she even regret going as far as she did over literally nothing?
I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't care. Call a priest, call your mother, call your grandpa. I don't care. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm done.
En serio.
Yeah, I think I'm never really done. I think one of the things that drives Yohan crazy is like, I'll say something, but I may not mean it.
Well, that's a no then. Danielle's laughing about it, but her behaviour towards Yohan is incredibly toxic. She says she doesn't mean it when she says terrible things, but that just means she's intentionally saying things just to hurt him. We've seen Danielle undermine a lot of Yohan's confidence during their time together, and it looks like other cast members have noticed this too.
You emasculated Yohan and carried his balls in your purse, and it seemed like you wanted to take control of the whole relationship.
I agree.
Technically, he carried his own balls, I guess, you know, while he was carrying her purse.
Tienes que andar con tu cartera, pues tuya.
¿Por qué? Necesito ayuda ahora.
Sí, pues no siempre voy a andar con tu cartera.
But throughout the tell-all, it's become increasingly obvious that Danielle considers herself the victim in this relationship. In fact, she's constantly comparing her experience to that of Nicole and Mahmoud.
You know, I think about the same thing in my own relationship because I have similar experiences, and I wonder if it's going to get better or if it's going to get worse.
As Danielle wipes away what looks like a non-existent tear, you can see just how surprised Yohan is that Danielle's comparing their relationship to Nicole's. But it's not the first time she's done this. Last week, when Mahmoud exploded in anger and walked off the show, this is what Danielle said.
If your wife is constantly telling you over and over again that she's not going to abide by your rules, or it's very oppressive for her.
So basically, Danielle's out here comparing Yohan not wanting to hang out with her ex to Mahmoud wanting Nicole to wear a hijab. It's so ironic that Danielle paints herself as the victim who's being told to bend to her husband's rules, when in fact, it's Danielle who's the controlling one. So yeah. If the comparison had to be made, I'd say Danielle is more of a Mahmoud than a Nicole. But despite everything, their marriage is salvageable at this point. So where did it all go wrong?
So Danielle, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy is the marriage now?
Some days it's a 20, some days it's like a -5.
Now, these two are still in their marriage, and by the looks of things, they're still fighting for that dominant role in the relationship, rather than managing to find any balance. The pair both agree that communication is a huge issue for them, but Yohan reveals that trust is the other factor that's causing a lot of arguments.
You don't trust Danielle, or Danielle doesn't trust you?
Un poco de los dos.
So while we've clearly seen Yohan's trust issues based on his attitude towards Danielle's ex, Danielle also reveals that she too has begun to lose trust in Yohan. What caused this for her? Well, it seems to stem from the way that Yohan acted at the surprise birthday she organised for him.
I love his family so much, and I didn't want them to see that. And I was really upset that he humiliated me in front of his family, and I think I could never show face in front of them the same way again.
As Danielle talks about how humiliated she felt when Yohan didn't thank her in his speech, she starts to turn on the waterworks. And sure, while that was pretty rude and immature of him, I think Danielle's being incredibly overdramatic here. It was hardly humiliating. I mean, his family were just laughing. Had she not been the one to cause such a scene, they probably would have forgotten all about it after the night had ended. Yet now, here's Danielle wiping away tears like she's traumatised by it. But thankfully, the rest of the cast don't believe her.
We don't bring guys that we used to have fun with and no commitment with and flaunt it in front of our husband.
Even Debbie, whose behaviour in the tell-alls has lost her a lot of fans, understands that Yohan acted the way he did that night because he was hurt by Danielle's actions. She tells Danielle to her face that what she did by bringing Talon into the picture was disrespectful to her husband. And that earns her a round of applause from Yohan. It must be nice for him to have a fellow member of cast in his corner. Someone who's willing to explain what he seems to have struggled to communicate to his wife.
But he said he loves you, and he said he trusted you. What he said is that it hurt him.
Yeah.
Right? So that's different.
It was either you come with me or I go alone. What if he just wasn't comfortable with that?
Yohan's problem since day one has always been how he felt Danielle has no consideration for how he feels. Instead of caring, she's just been giving him ultimatums. Like, be okay with being friends with my ex, or don't be with me at all. But Danielle isn't liking all the critique from the cast because she needs to be the victim, remember? So she flips the script and now she tries to paint Yohan as the controlling one.
It almost seems like your wife is property and I should have a say over what she does.
I think you should have some say so on what your husband does. Like, that's part of a marriage or a partnership.
It's both ways, because you tell him what to do all the time. And he just told you, like, this one thing.
Danielle's always trying to control what Yohan does. So how can she turn around and say that he's trying to control her? It reminds me of someone who's been single for so long that they've just forgotten how to take other people into consideration when they're doing things. But everything changes as soon as Talon's brought onto set. Yohan's whole demeanour shifts after he sees footage of Danielle and Talon on their river cruise meetup. And this is the beginning of the end.
Así tú hablas de tu esposo con tu amante, con tu ex pareja, que tú le dices a tu ex como burlándote de mí. Te va a pesar esa decisión. Te va a pesar.
As Yohan watches his wife divulge their relationship issues to her ex, it's clear that his pride is very hurt. To be honest, I still find it very bizarre that she'd choose Talon as the person to open up about their marital issues to. But in this moment, Yohan shows just how bad his communication is. Because instead of explaining this to Danielle, he conveys he's upset by threatening her, telling her it's going to cost her. This is something we've seen him do in the past, but Danielle's reaction probably isn't what Yohan was hoping for.
I understand that he's upset about Talon. I don't know what I can do to make that better because I can't change the past, so...
While it's definitely not ideal, I think Yohan's threats were an attempt to get a reaction out of Danielle. A reaction that shows she cares. Instead, all he got was a shrug. In this entire relationship, Danielle hasn't cared about anything Yohan wants. He wanted to move to America, she didn't care. He wanted to show her his butcher's business, she shot him down. He wanted some respect, she called him misogynistic. So at what point will all this become just too much for him?
Yo estoy con Daniel hasta que se cumpla el contrato de la casa. Cuando se termine el contrato, ella coge su lado y yo el mío.
Finally, it seems like when it comes to making ultimatums, Yohan has taken a few notes out of Danielle's book. But is this another case of Yohan trying to scare a reaction out of Danielle? Or does he really mean it this time?
The fact that he saw Talon walk in this room is why he's responding that way.
Pero ya no quiero estar con Daniel. Ya no tengo el mismo amor que sentía por ella.
Yohan thinks that the decisions Danielle's made have broken their relationship, where he doesn't feel the same way about her. But in typical fashion, Danielle immediately minimises his feelings. She treats his reaction like a child having a tantrum. She waves it off, saying that it's just because Talon's there. Danielle constantly does this with Yohan. She never acknowledges that his feelings might actually be real.
Tú no quieres compromiso, tú te quedas sola, no te cases. Si tú no quieres dar responsabilidad a tu esposo, no te cases.
Now, Yohan reveals that he actually told Danielle at the very beginning of their relationship that he'd like to keep exes out of this relationship. This is apparently because he had a bad experience in the past, and that makes the weight of Danielle's decisions even heavier. It also explains why Yohan is so hung up on it. But he's right with his statement. If she wants all the freedom, if she wants a life with no consideration for a man, then why did she get married? Yohan's ego has been severely bruised at this point, and he starts to try and recover some pride. But the way that he does this, by lying, leaves a lot to be admired.
Ella paga todo con el dinero que yo le doy. ¿Por qué ella no dice eso?
I think he wants to appear like he has power in a situation because he feels humiliated.
Now, if you've watched my videos for any length of time, you'll know that I'm not a Danielle fan. But I believe her here. There's no way that Yohan's paying 50-50 with the salary that he's on in the DR. So what's with the sudden lying? It's weird because he's just been caught out in a lie, yet no one seems to question him about it. The tell-all just moves on. But despite all of this, Danielle thinks that the two of them can make it work, even though Yohan's seemingly tapped out of this marriage.
So I think he needs to be willing to go to therapy with me so that we can figure out what the root of our issues are so we don't have the same problem again.
Yeah.
No, no me interesa terapia.
That's not a bad suggestion from Danielle, but the truth is, maybe it's too little too late for these two. It's hard to tell whether Yohan's talking his big talk because he wants to hurt Danielle's feelings. Maybe he's trying to humiliate her on TV, or if he genuinely feels this way. But one thing's for sure, Yohan wants us to know he carries his own balls. Thank you very much.